Hello and welcome to my October reading wrap-up. I tried to participate in two readathons this month, the spookathon on one hand and Mercedes autumn readathon, I believe it was called. But I'll start off with the first few books I read in the beginning of the month, which had nothing to do with any readathon obligations. So the very first book I read was the first part of a trilogy, Wool by Hugh Howey. This was a really interesting read, not only because we discussed it in my book club. In this world, I guess, the outside world has become inhabitable and we follow different individuals who all live as part of a society underground in a large silo. This was actually a really cool, interesting read, especially because apparently the first, I'm not sure if it's the first two or first three chapters in the book, read a lot like short stories. And it makes sense because they were originally self-published, and Hugh Howey was just so overwhelmed by the publicity and basically also the popularity of these short stories that he ended up actually getting published, wrote this whole trilogy, yada yada yada. So that was really interesting to see how the chapters just worked by themselves. I enjoyed the first few chapters more than the latter chapters. I felt towards the end it dragged on a little. The setting is cool. It's this silo over, I don't remember now, something like over 130 floors or something like that. And towards the end of the book, there's a lot of going upstairs and going downstairs and descriptions of being so winded. And I get that helps build the atmosphere, but it did drag on a little. Still, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I do want to continue with the trilogy. I thought there was some really cool thoughts about class in society and the division between different classes, socioeconomic classes, how professions are tied to class, and there was some really quite cool different characters. Also, what I found quite refreshing, different ages. So we don't have this typical YA heroine. Well, I guess we also have her, but we also have some older characters that are cool and important, and there's this whole reflection on the young and the old being able to use a new thought, because the one feel like they don't have much to lose anymore and the other feel like they have so much to gain. So that was really cool. I really enjoyed it. I'd recommend it to basically anyone. Do watch out. I read it on a Kindle and I bought the Silo Omnibus, I think it was called, on Amazon, and only later realised that it came with illustrations and my Kindle wasn't able to show those. So on my phone I could see all the illustrations, but that was a shame that I just didn't see them whilst reading them. Although there I'd also kind of be interested, what's your thought on illustrations in books? I don't know, because I think it would have distracted me. I liked trying to imagine the silo without actually seeing any drawings, but still, paid for it, and afterwards I was kind of bummed out that I didn't get to see them whilst reading. Then the second book I read was Our Endless Numbered Days by Claire Fuller. This follows 8-year-old Peggy, who is abducted is a too harsh word, taken by her survivalist father to live in the middle of nowhere in a hut because he is convinced that the world has ended. And it switches back and forth, sorry I have a cold, and also a cut finger, so great. This switches back and forth between then 8-year-old Peggy and her father in the 70s, I believe, living in this hut, and present day, 9 years later, when she is reunited with her mother. And I wanted to love this, especially because a lot of the themes discussed in this are usually something that really work for me. I like the father-daughter relationship exploration. I like, typically, even though it's morbid, stories about kidnapping or sort of difficult relationships with children. Like, I know it's all a bit icky, but I do find it really fascinating. And I feel like the book kind of missed out for me because it didn't explore to the full extent I felt the present day, I think it's 1985, how you deal with returning to long lost family members, how you deal with the world having moved on without you, a traumatic experience, feeling like a stranger from your own mother. Like all those themes in the present day I found really interesting, and then I got almost disappointed that we dwelled so much on these sort of nature, chopping wood, ooh, what's that bird conversations in the 70s, living in the middle of nowhere. I get that someone who enjoys a quite atmospheric read would really appreciate that part of it. For me it fell a bit flat though, and I also didn't find the plot especially surprising. There's a bit of a twist, but I struggle to even call it a twist. So this one was only mediocre. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5, and I'm a bit disappointed because I'd heard really good things and I wanted to like it more. My third read of the month, luckily, was one that I loved, and I've been postponing reading this for such a long time and I don't know why, and it's Fates and Furies by Lauren Groff. It still has like stickers on the back. When I was once upon a time going through my TBI, I did do a video about that, and yay, I read one of them. This is a book about a relationship, but that description doesn't do it justice. We have the husband telling the first half or so, I think, of the book, and the wife who tells the story in the second half of the book. And I thought this was just so excellently written, and the characters I thought were multifaceted. I was interested in their backstory, but I was also interested in their present and their future. I only tabbed one thing, but that's because I couldn't be bothered to get tabs to interrupt my reading flow, because I just loved it. There's a lot of envy, of fame, money, and love, and I loved it. I thought it was great. This to me is if Meg Wollitzer's The Interestings had a love child with a Gone Girl. And I usually hate people drawing any like, this is the new Gone Girl, and this is nothing like Gone Girl. It just feels like a beautiful melting of the two of those. I love both of those books, and I really loved Fates and Furies. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And then we're on to the 3 books I read during the spookathon, and because I tried out doing a little vloggy spookathon experience video, I'm only going to go over those quickly. I read Remember Mia by Alexandra Burt and only gave this 2 out of 5 stars. Unfortunately, as time goes by, I find myself thinking I could have given it even less. I really didn't like it. This is memory loss in a female main character meets missing baby. I didn't like it because I thought it was simplified, inaccurate about the workings of the brain, and also just villainized psychological disorder. Didn't like it. Then I read Alex Garland's The Coma, which I found interesting. I did only give it 3 out of 5 stars just because it wasn't very hooking, but it doesn't hurt because it's not a very long book. It has some really interesting illustrations by the father of the author included, and is a exploration of the subconscious and a illustration of the wacky dream-like sequences our brain makes us go through. And then I read Lamb by Bonnie Nadzam. This took me the longest to read out of the 3, even though I possibly liked it the most. I ended up also only giving this 3 out of 5 stars, which I find difficult to defend. I still don't really know how to talk about this book. This follows a narcissistic midlife crisis guy and the efforts of him grooming an 11-year-old girl, very, very much with a paedophile undertone and a sort of American road trip they go on. It doesn't sound as... It works better than that description makes it sound like it would. It's a very harrowing read. You're really in the mind of this very, very unlikable protagonist. I did find that it sort of derailed a little towards the end, even though I really appreciated how she wraps up the story, and it doesn't go where you expect it to go. I still felt like it it almost wanted to rush and make it more plot focused towards the end, whilst I actually enjoyed the more character exploration and really minuscule step-by-step development of a really wrong relationship. It's very dialogue heavy, so if you don't like that, beware. And obviously this might be quite triggering for a lot of people, even though it's not explicit, but the mind takes you where the book doesn't. So take that as a little bit of a warning if those are just themes you don't want to explore in the fiction you read. And then I've basically finished, but I'm meeting my book club this evening, so that's going to help me form a full opinion on The Wonder by Emma Donoghue. That was a book I read as part of the autumn readathon, and this is a historical fiction book about a young girl in Ireland who stops eating and has stopped eating for running on 4 months, and a nurse is sent from England to observe her, basically to make sure that she's not fibbing or tricking the system. And it's a huge exploration of Catholicism in Ireland at the time, and I found it very interesting, very slow paced, and I enjoyed it despite religion and faith being the largest theme of the book. Usually that's a big flag for me, and I don't tend to gravitate towards those books. But it doesn't try to criticize religion, and it doesn't try to herald religion as the solution either. Rather, we get spotlights of different people and how they feel towards their belief. So I'm tentatively saying I liked it, but also not a lot happens. So you have to also enjoy atmosphere, nice writing, and maybe also the themes. It did fit the autumn readathon really well because it's in an uncomfortable, rainy, cold Ireland, and that was one of the prompts in the readathon, to read a book set in a cold location. I was unsure whether this book would fit the bill, but it did. And then I'm currently finishing up a very thin book called Tant by Jenny Erpenbeck, the only German book I will have finished this month. I'm saying I'll still finish this month. I'm filming this on the 30th. I'm having problems with my internet, so we'll see when you actually get to see this. This is a short story collection by a German author and opera director, I think she is as well. This explores themes of family and love and nostalgia. I feel like a lot of the stories feel very nostalgic. It's not my favourite short story collection. I find it very, wordy is the wrong word, but just reliant on long, complicated sentences. And it's a bit of a pet peeve I have with a lot of German authors. Even though some of the thoughts and emotions expressed in the stories really get to me, it feels so repetitive, having all these little side sentences. I just find them unnecessary. I find them frilly. So it's not going to go down as one of my favourite ones, but maybe short story collections are actually a way for me to go and force myself to read more German, just because you can dip in and out of it easier, and maybe also a good idea for someone learning German or wanting to improve German as a second language. German is my native tongue, but I find myself finding German often quite complicated to read, unnecessarily cumbersome. I wouldn't say this is a straightforward, easy read, but they're short stories. So maybe your capacity to stick with a story will be a bit better. Maybe not necessarily recommend this one. I got this one from the library though. So if you have the option of maybe just doing something like that, give it a go. Others have liked this more than me. So that's what I did read in this month and what I'm currently reading, and we'll hopefully wrap up as well. Next month, it's borrow-a-thon coming up, which I love. I really like going to the library often, especially because it gives me a bit of a refuge from spending money on books. I'm also thinking of borrowing quite a few books from friends because I'm eager to dive into the world of comics, which is really not something I dabble in a lot. But if you have any recommendations for someone who likes superheroes but likes character development more than Flash Boom Bang, then that would be really appreciated. And I hope you had a good month. I already celebrated Halloween a little early. I dressed up as Gamora, which was a horrible idea because my entirely green face and upper body just concluded to melt off of me all night. But it's always a fun time. I hope you had a good month, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.